O'Shea, and these are our fantastic kids. That was our opening reel, which Cormac put together for us, featuring the junior and senior performance dancers. Some beginner lines coming in. You can see some of those little kids learning their way across the stage. And an end piece was this very special step called Ottawa Valley Step Dancing. Now that's something that's come down from Canada. It's a wild, distant cousin of O'Shea, of Irish dance itself. And we had a workshop with Yvonne Hernandez, who brought that over to us. It's this great, powerful, musical little rhythm, and we love that after all the soft shoe. We're going to go back into soft shoe, however. Next we have what we call a slip jig. A slip jig is a beautiful musical piece. It's done in 9/8 time. You'll see it's like a jig and a little half that slips into the next piece. Beautiful music. We have our beginner threes about to kick that off. You guys want to come up on stage and make your lines here? This may be the first time they have done this dance on stage. Spread out a little bit, find your center. They love this one as much as I do. Of the light dances, it's my favorite, and I hope it's yours too. Ladies and gentlemen, the slip jig. we decided we would choreograph a hard shoe step to a light jig. Very unconventional, but Cormac loves to be unpredictable. So we put that together. What you see here, as you can see with the slip jig, we moved up from our beginner dancers all the way through. You can perhaps see the levels as they're learning to manage the stage and negotiate their space. What we have here are the pros. We are a registered school with on commission in Dublin. Cormac O'Shea is our TCRG, and he brings our dancers to compete at local, regional, national, and even world championship levels. These guys, and a couple more backstage who we'll bring out in just a second, are nationals competitors. Just this past July, they all went to Chicago to compete solo steps at the nationals. Now to do that, hate standing there, can you tell by the smiles? To do that, they need to present a dance in a light shoe, dance in a hard shoe, and then they get to do a special piece if they recall. That recall is called their set. It's a non-traditional set, which means it's a special choreography by their teacher expressly for them. And they get very special steps. Depending on who it is, they get to do a different version of it. They're going to show you a little bit of that now. That is called the Blackthorn Step.
I just left my one. They were standing out underneath the speakers trying to talk over the mics like this. Championships, and many of them are also our assistant teachers and are in training our youth and helping mentor them, and they're absolutely incredible. You guys make sure you can see your faces so I can down the line. Got Liam Slattery, Megan Golder, Claire Ditch, Megan Lemakis, Rita Wagner, Sophie Meyerly, James Anderson, Amy Green, Callie Long, and Evan Lau. Two of the girls there are up. These guys train like athletes. This is actually a dance sport, and they have injuries, and so right now they're actually our stage managers. You couldn't have any two better girls right now than Meg and Callie back there. Thank you guys for all of that. Now, training-wise, these guys, on average, have 8 to 11 years of training to be able to do what they do for that, right there. You'll notice it's a lot of lift. It's an incredible amount of beats within a musical piece. It doesn't always start out like that. We have to begin somewhere, and we'd like to bring our beginner 2 dancers up for their treble jig. Maggie, you want to send them on stage, honey? an English teacher. So we taught them a special word for this. This is their debut of their heart shoe. And I have to say, this is where my heart starts to palpitate. I love to call them my babies, and it's never meaning that you're little. They're all my babies' parents, no harm meant. I like to borrow them from you at least 1 hour a week. This is very special. Their very first treble jig on the stage of any kind for you. Our beginner 2 class, and again, the beginner 3s in their treble jig. I just love that part. We all wanted to turn, we had to make it all work. That was their treble jig. Now, it takes a lot of control to learn to control those pieces. If you guys have seen the shoes before, there's 2 pieces. Will you guys all take a turn around and just show the back of your shoe? There's a heel piece and a toe piece. You can relax. Thank you guys. Hang out and smile. The heel piece and toe piece, you learn to control very intricate sounds, and they're also learning about the music. Now that was, as I said, a treble jig. There's also a light jig, the slip jig, and what we're going to feature here is actually a neat piece. This is St. Patrick's Day. Everybody's here to St. Patrick. Yeah. That's a no-brainer, of course. What a lot of people don't know is that St. Patrick's Day is actually a traditional tune. Nobody knows how far back it dates. It's also a traditional heart shoe dance. Now, these guys are going to show you the choreography that is done pretty much the same over the whole world. They would do this the same in Australia, where, in case you're wondering, that's where Cormac is today. They would do it the same in New Zealand. They would do it the same in Japan. You wouldn't believe where Irish dancing is. It's a traditional set. It's 100-year-old choreography, and it's a beautiful piece of music. At the end, we're going to bring it in and show you a version of a Kaylee or team dance. This one's unique. It's a 16-hand dance. But first, we're going to let these guys show you their traditional set dance. 100-year-old choreography. It's great. Thank you. the gates of Derry, in case anybody would know that. And in the middle there was actually the St. Patrick's Day done as a Kaylee dance. We do those competitively, of course. And you can see they're probably a bit out of breath. We're going to let them catch their breath while we take things down to another size. We'll take things down to a different level and a different speed. We teach for fun, for competition, but also for fitness, like you said. My favorite part of all of this is how we teach our youngest dancers. We began our program with a music education base, worked with creative movement, and developed this with Nora Rendell, who's the artistic director of the Center for Irish Music. We work very closely with them. We're housed in the same building. Sarah, you guys ready? This is our tree. This is our pre-beginner and preschool classes. Now, the most important things that we teach them today is to smile and have fun, because we told them you will love them no matter what. But we also practice a lot of clapping, a lot of rhythm, a lot of listening skills. We work with the hands, we work with the feet, we work with shapes. And they're just fantastic. They're going to show you what they've been working on in class with Miss Sarah, their fabulous teacher, and I'll let them off too. Thank you, Chris. Joy, right there. We love that. You can imagine it takes a great deal of work for that control and lines and circles, and sometimes holding hands can be one of our biggest challenges. It's unbelievable. And one of the best parts about being a teacher is how you learn about these kids every day, and you learn about how they learn. Our next level, we're going to take it up the next step. They're our beginner class. Now we take our beginners, we have very small classes where they begin kindergarten and they can actually learn some of the more detailed stuff. Irish dancing is hard. We have adult classes if you want to see how hard that is. I always encourage our parents to try that because they have no idea to get that sequence of the forward and tuck behind, how complicated that is. However, we're going to bring up our beginners and have them show you. Now we continue the training as a music education, but of course it's great training for discipline, for character, for body, for mind, and of course we just love them to bits. So guys, would you like to come on? Beginner class. Call them Sophia. And And Chris, I'll get off. Thank you very much. Debut. That would have been their stage debut for many of them. It takes a great deal of confidence to learn and train this. But they were showing you there are two basic steps, which is 1, 2, 3, which is over and then forward and then tuck behind, and a side step, whereas the front goes to the side and the back tucks behind. Now those are the fundamental vocabulary pieces of what Irish dance becomes. Do you guys want to come on and set yourselves in your forehands? Team. What we're going to show you as our last part of our kind of instructional piece is the next part that we actually apply that to. What these lovely young ladies are going to show you is a forehand. Those basic steps go into the social dances. So if you want to get into this, all you need to learn are 2 things. It's that easy, you guys. And if you know how to make a line, it's even better. They will put it into a forehand dance. These will be competed in September at the Minnesota Fesh. The Minnesota Fesh is one of our few local competitions. Chicago's really lucky to have what they have out there. We work very hard for ours. It's coming up Saturday, September 22nd. All of our dancers who are able to compete will go and do that. If you want to see some competitive dancing, you'll find that at the River Center on that day. Meanwhile, see if you can spot some of those steps. Here's the forehand reel. body of the dance. What they do is they use that as like the chorus of the musical piece, and they'll go in to put other pieces in between that, to the point where these can go on and on and on. You wouldn't believe how much fitness it takes to really do it well. You should look for a lot of lift up and back, a lot of toe pointing, a lot of high knees when they leap, which just shows it can be fitness, it can be social. I'll put our plug in here. We have a third Saturday Kaylee every single month if you guys want to come and try it. $5 at the Celtic Junction. Celtic Junction is a Celtic Arts Center. Cormac and I founded it to make a home for our school, but we also used it to house the Center for Irish Music, where we teach the music classes. It house another 7 or 8 dance schools. We actually have quite a lot going on there. Most of them based around this type of social dancing. We'll take it back into our high form. Hopefully our kids will have had a chance to catch their breath. And we'll show you when you work on the training, and they should be beautifully warmed up, what it looks like when it's more of the athletic, competitive trained form. Here come our senior dancers.
say what I showed you was a traditional set dance. Are all choreographed by my husband, Cormac O'Shea. His conspicuous absence, as I said, is because he's in Australia. He's an Irish musician as well. And one of the things that they maintain for Irish dancing is a lot of live music. It all grew out of the music. He's been asked to go down and play in Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth for the Australian Regional Championships. He actually Skyped us in class on Thursday, which was very exciting for the kids. And he had to make sure that those toes were pointed, and the kicks were high, and the lifts were up and back. And nothing was left to chance. He would never like to bring this up much, but he was actually the original cast of Riverdance. By original, I actually mean before it was a full show, it was the Eurovision Song Contest piece, an interval for 20 minutes, broadcast all across Europe. He was 16 years old and standing in that original line where his parents had actually taught 17 of the original 21 dancers there. So you can see his background, his professionalism, everything that he does goes into creating these choreographies and making them up for you. I'm not flying completely solo, though, luckily. I have to give a shout out to the incredible community we have at O'Shea Irish Dance, and that means all these parents, with all the faces that I can see in this room. We have incredible helpers and volunteers in the community that have come in to support us all the way to full stop, and they're wonderful. And with them, the Irish spirit can be daunting, but with them, we're never alone. From that, we'll actually go and show you. They get to support us so that we can do what we love, and that is teaching. We'll show our last group of beginner dancers. They're going to come on and do their last piece, the light jig. Ladies and gentlemen, would you like to come on up? And for the training, what I can point out while they get themselves settled and find their center, guys, is how they are learning to point their toes. It's a very curious style of Irish dance that it's always crossed. It's always brought very tight across the body here. And believe it or not, you need an incredible amount of control up here to keep those arms actually relaxed and at your side. They're not supposed to be crazy tight like you see when it's done by comedians. They should be well supported. So here we go with their training, you guys. Light jig. This is a bouncy one. They love it. To our backstage parents, to the people who tie the shoes, the ones who are lining them up. Thank you so much to each and every one of our teachers who are back here making sure that the kids are happy and comfortable and ready to come up here and face hundreds of people. It's very exciting to be here. We'd like to thank the Irish Fair. This is the largest free festival. We were just in Dublin, Ohio, and they charge a fortune. It's a great festival. The music was beautiful, but you guys, we're very lucky to have this and like to continue to support it as we go ahead. We're going to bring out our last piece. This is actually my favorite horseshoe music. It's called the hornpipe. Legend has it that it was discovered, or not discovered, but shared by
sailors. And it's got a little bit of a swing and a wave to it. And we think that's a bunch of hooey, but I love the sound of it. I think it's actually very descriptive of the music, of the tones, the way it works through. We're Irish Dance, located on I-94, just between the two cities. We're accessible from everywhere, and we'd love to see you at any of our events. We do concerts, music, Kaylee dances, social dances, parties, Irish style. So come in and drop by and see us, and you will enjoy our last number, the hornpipe. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.